Hey, and welcome to this first Q&A session that we're doing since the beginning of the Fling project. Question 1 from Dylan L. Martin. Do you find a can of Heinz beans to be good for a whole meal, or do you try to split it up between multiple meals? That depends entirely on what I've been up to that day. I've quite often eaten an entire can of Heinz baked beans. If I'm coming home late and I'm just drunk off my tits, then it is something that's very easy to down the whole thing without stopping. And then over here, he's also asking the real question: once you get a concept for a video down, how long does it generally take to arrive at a final version? I wish that I had a less embarrassing answer to this, but the truth is that that depends entirely on my state of mind. If I'm in one of my modes where I'm doubting and second-guessing a lot, a video can take, as long as 2.5 weeks from the initial concept. If I'm just kind of trying to write the script and I keep on going back and changing things and worrying about it, then it can take a while. When everything is running right and I'm looking at it correctly, then the average is about a week, I think. The quicker I move, the better the video. When I'm not in that state of worrying about it, then the video almost invariably turns out better. Question 2 from Brian Magruder Cohn. In some episodes you mention your mother and father and also siblings. Are these siblings made up for the videos? This one has an interesting answer. I've been asked this before because it's a little bit inconsistent in some of the videos. I say that I have 2 brothers, and in other videos I say that I've got a sister. What happened is that my oldest brother got a sex change operation. Technically it's true that I had 2 brothers and now I've got a brother and a sister. I think that in this situation there's can often be an attitude of wanting to have a revisionist history of it, and just saying that this a person that got a sex change, in this case anyway, was always a girl. For the video's sake, and for, I think that my own, looking at the past, I just sort of have to have the, I was going to say cutoff point, but I think it's probably the wrong term to use. Just that there is a certain point where, I no longer had a brother, I have a sister. So that's the story behind that one. Okay, from Jill. What is the one Simpsons quote that randomly pops in your head frequently? I can't answer your question with just one because I've got too many. If I've just done something dumb, then I like saying one from an episode called Boy Scouts in the Hood, where Homer, Bart was thinking of what Homer would be like on a rafting trip, and Homer was like rowing in the wrong direction, and the quote that he says then is, "Duh, I'm the captain. My son is Bart." And so I say that one pretty often. If I've just been disappointed by something, then I say a Hans Moleman one. I don't remember the episode, but I say, "Nobody's gay for Mole Man." If I'm cooking and I'm tasting something, then I'll do a Troy McClure that goes, "That's good, Billy." The one I probably use the most is the closest to the way the character intended it. If something goes well, then I will go like, "Excellent." Question from Lolik Van Doorn. A bit of an absurd one. If you had to spend your next life as a sentient piece of furniture, what would it be and why? I would probably want to be a bar. Originally I was thinking that I would want to be a sofa, but then you'd have to spend all of your lifetime of existence having people farting on your pillows. I think that the thing about being a bar is it would be kind of like being a barber, wouldn't it? You'd be able to listen in on all sorts of conversations, and you'd have a very good idea of people's state of minds. You'd find out a lot about their personalities, and you'd know a great deal of what was going on in the world. One would think you'd find out the most being a bar. From Gesso, what is your favorite type of thing to draw in your videos? I think almost certainly I still, there's one video I remember drawing better than almost any other one. It's probably the video called Horny, one of the earlier ones, because I got to draw all these female body parts in various states of lingerie and everything, and so I'm unlikely to really ever forget that one. It was a pretty sensual experience. I think apart from that, almost definitely my favorite thing to draw is really the facial expressions, to see what I can capture, and to also, that's something that just almost always makes me laugh, if I'm able to get an expression right and that it triggers something, then I really get into that, and that probably makes me happier than almost anything else. Okay, from Jericho Valentine. 2 questions. First, how does it feel having the amount of support you currently have after starting Fling? That feels really great, and it's been energizing that people have been, looking forward to seeing it, and I am too looking forward to seeing it, and so. That's something that sparks up additional enthusiasm in me. So that's been immensely helpful for the whole thing. Second, what advice can you give someone who wants to start a series similar to yours? That's a good question. A thing to keep in mind about starting any sort of artistic project at all is that there is going to be a temptation to try to second guess people and try to guess what the audience is going to want and what is going to be successful for you. You just keep in mind that if like your second guessing does not bring any results, then the whole thing is going to be very depressing. I personally think it's better to approach it really on what you want to say and what is going to kind of keep you enthusiastic about it, and thus trying to be the most personally truthful that you can be. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be super confessional about everything. It's just that showing off just the world as you see it. Even if it is a fantasy world, it is still the world as you see it. And that's going to, even if you have a great deal of disappointment ahead of you, and almost anybody who tries to do this, they are going to have an immense amount of disappointment. As long as you're doing something that you think is worth making, you're going to have a tremendous higher amount of endurance in making it. That's the only advice I think I can give. From Tara Rhiannon Bartley. If you ascribe to the idea of guilty pleasures, care to name a few? If you ascribe to the idea of guilty pleasures, not really. I remember reading a quote, I forget who said it, a long time ago, and I always really liked it, and it went, never be ashamed of something that you like. And I believe that pretty strongly. That said, there are definitely some things that I do like, I almost feel like I need to give an introduction to. For instance, I do get a great deal of pleasure out of sometimes incredibly stupid entertainment. Like, I still have a warm space in my heart for old Beavis and Butthead episodes. I still do find those funny. And in a strange sort of way, it's these days it almost looks like a portrait of America, doesn't it? There's some old kind of dopey heavy metal albums that I still will listen to. I was just listening to Ozzy Osbourne's Diary of a Madman, I think just yesterday, and I heard that one when I was a kid, and I loved it then, and I still kind of like it. I can't say that I have any real shame connected with my love of junk food. In San Francisco, I almost wear it on my sleeve. I hope that answers your question. Okay, from Ramani. Cats or dogs? I think to a lot of people this might be heresy, but I'm not really that much of a I'm not that much of a pet person. I think because I tend to be distracted, it's hard for me to kind of get my mind square and thinking about things properly, and I just don't want to put another thing in the mix to kind of keep me from what I should be doing. I do kind of like playing with dogs a bit, and I do sort of like having cats around, but I like it much better when they're not mine. Okay, from Daniela. This might be a very weird question, but do you talk to yourself? I don't just mean muttering when you're trying to remember something or talking about yourself in the third person when you do something stupid. I mean actually imagine a conversation you could be having with someone and start saying out loud and answering yourself. It's not that weird a question, and I will sometimes have conversations with people that I wish were around, and I can sometimes be like a half decent mimic, and for instance, like that, I will sometimes have conversations with my dad because I can imitate his voice fairly well, and you know, sometimes if I'm confused about something or trying to stay on track or, you know, not quite sure what I should be doing next, then yes, I will have conversations where I'll ask a question and then I'll answer in his voice. I hope you'll forgive me, but it would be a little bit difficult for me to carry on answering this question. Last question from Planet Cattern. Which artists do you like and why? My favorite painter, or really draftsman, he drew better than he painted, is probably Egon Schiele. He was from Vienna, died very young, and he was around, I think, mostly before the Second World War. Always had a soft spot for Willem de Kooning. I like a great deal of his paintings. But also, I really was very influenced by the German art school, the Bauhaus. A lot of the work that came out of there. Bauhaus now, usually people think of the band, the English band from the early '80s. But if you weren't aware of this, it was named after an art school that I think they started in around 1919, something like that, and they were really like the almost the birth of what we now call modernism. Another thing that was a big influence on me, and unfortunately there's not really that much good video of them, was a Swiss mime troupe that started, I think, in the late 60s, called the Mummenschans. And now they're kind of kiddie entertainment in a lot of ways. A lot of people look at it as kind of a puppet show, but they used to be a much more adult sort of thing. And I saw them a couple of times when I was a kid, and it did really blow me away. I'll try to find a clip or two that I can show you guys to show the thing that the bits that I like. Because there isn't all that much that's really good out there. Okay, that is all of the questions. Thank you for the questions. This was a lot of fun to talk about. Until later.